Welcome to On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Jeff Howe and CJ Vogel. This episode brought to you by our friends over at Advanced Pain Care. Let's get into it, guys. Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, went to the microphone and announced that the SEC is going to a 9-game schedule. Forever, the SEC has been an 8-game schedule. Now, with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma, they've made the move to go to 9 games. There's a number of reasons for the move, including potentially an expanded college football playoff, as well as a change in the playoff rules by the selection rules of the playoffs. The ACC is also expected to follow suit and create a similar backdrop of its teams now playing 9 games. The Big 12 and the Big 10 already do play 9 conference games. What do y'all make of this move overall, CJ Vogel?
Yeah, I'll start from a Texas perspective because I think this is fantastic. If you're a Texas fan, you get 4 home games, you get 4 away games, and you get the game in Dallas with Oklahoma every single year. That's how it'll be. No more will you kind of get a hit or miss year every now and then. 2025 would be a miss year for the home schedule. We've talked about it. It's not overwhelmingly exciting with the exception of the Texas A&M game at the back end, but consistency when it comes to 4 home, 4 away, and that neutral site, I think it's fantastic for the sport. It's better football and more of it on top of that. And we'll talk about that +1 out of conference game, Bobby. I think, again, it helps the sport at the top end. And for the viewer, this is fantastic.
I agree with the viewer comment. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. I think the networks, Fox and ESPN in particular, they need TV inventory. They need TV inventory of really good quality games. Look, as much as I love Texas being in the SEC, and last year was great getting to follow the league closer than I ever have, nobody likes that week in November where everybody's playing, FCS directional school. We all want to see good competitive games. If you're going to have with the expanded playoff, whatever the case is going to be, how are they going to value the strength of schedule component, whatever that formula ends up looking like, the more these conferences are on equal footing, the less argument you'll have if you're one of the teams on the outside looking in at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's been a consolidation of sorts.
Yeah.
Of how everybody's viewing this. I think that's the important part of it. I do find it interesting where Texas is right now as it relates to this and how the impetus of maybe Texas and Oklahoma coming into the SEC kind of hastened this idea. All right, let's talk about Texas in particular and maybe OU and A&M as well. This is a list of preferred 3-team permanent opponents. That means you'll go home and away with these teams every year. And so, for example, it shows here on Texas, OU, A&M, and Arkansas. Well, Texas obviously has OU in the Cotton Bowl, so they'll either have A&M at home or Arkansas at home every other year. And I think that's a good, interesting situation. Do y'all like and agree with the 3-team pod there for Texas of sorts, OU, A&M, and Arkansas?
Historically speaking, there should be no other 3 in this pod for the Longhorns. That's the 3. Now, I know that some on the younger side could argue who cares about Arkansas, but that's not for me to decide. And again, I do think that there is more history there. And hopefully Arkansas, again, with their program kind of being in the mud, I want to see Arkansas, become more competitive because there is hatred there, right? I've likened them very often to the Texas Tech's version of the Big 12, right? That's kind of how I see them hand in hand. You don't like them. You don't want to play them all too often. But, man, whenever you do beat them, man, does it feel sweet. So that 3 right there, 100%, I could see it. I believe it, or I agree with it is what I'm trying to say there. That should be the 3 for me.
Jeff?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, not everybody was going to be made whole. I mean, you can look at some of these. I mean, I don't think Auburn fans are that particularly excited, or maybe they are, that Vanderbilt's their 3rd in this hypothetical. But, I think for Texas fans, I'm with CJ from the standpoint that I get, like, the Arkansas game just doesn't mean as much to a younger generation of Texas fans and Texas grads as it does to another. But, not everybody's 3rd opponent is that great. And I think if you're trying to make everybody whole, for lack of a better term, this is the game Arkansas wanted. Arkansas wanted Texas, just like Texas had to keep the OU game, and they really wanted A&M. you kind of had to throw Arkansas in there as a third. I know disrespect to Arkansas, but I think they want this game a lot more than Texas does. So it could have been much worse, Bobby. I think if you're a Texas fan, now for the foreseeable future, every year, like CJ pointed out earlier, you've got 4 home games, you got 4 on the road, and the OU game is neutral. Yeah, I think you like the fact that for the foreseeable future, your 3 primary rivals throughout the history of your program, you can count on them being on the schedule. I dig that.
Jeff, and CJ, I would say this: the balancing out of the schedule is so important, right? What CJ said at the start: 4 home games, 4 away games, and 1 neutral site every single year is what Texas will get. And look, this schedule alone this year, people don't realize this. Texas is away from home for 42 consecutive days.
Yeah,
during this year. And so I think that I agree with what CJ said. I also agree with the 3 that are chosen for Texas. Now, and I use the term pod, and I think pod is the wrong term because guess what? We can talk about OU and A&M next. Their teams are not the same as Texas's teams, right? I mean, this suggestion or prediction has Oklahoma's 3 teams being Texas, Arkansas, and Missouri, and no A&M, while A&M has Texas, LSU, and Mississippi State. What are y'all's thoughts on that for those 2 schools? Jeff, I'll ask you first about the Sooners.
Yeah, and again, hypothetically, if this all plays out the way it's supposed to, Oklahoma just doesn't have any real natural rivals in the SEC. I mean, I guess if you can go
other than Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can go back to the Big 8 days and maybe some of the, but once the Big 12 was formed, Oklahoma and Missouri were in different divisions. So, I mean, I guess that's close enough. And I mean, you'd have to go back and look and see what kind of tradition Oklahoma and Arkansas, who, by the way, Bobby, played one of the worst football games I've ever seen. You go back to the Cotton Bowl at the end of the 2001 season when OU beat Arkansas in the Cotton Bowl. It's one of the worst football games I've ever seen. Go down the YouTube rabbit hole, kids, if you want to. But if I'm an Oklahoma fan, this doesn't necessarily excite me. It's funny, Bobby. Oklahoma's now in the position Texas was in when A&M left the Big 12 and went to the SEC, where Texas, Arkansas was long off the schedule on a yearly basis. A&M was off the schedule. You had the OU game, and that was it. Even though Tech or Baylor or TCU wanted to make that a quote-unquote rivalry game, Texas fans just didn't feel the same way about it. Man, the shoe's on the other foot now with OU.
Yeah. What do you think about A&M, CJ?
Yeah, I was trying to think about that Oklahoma-Arkansas back and forth there. I didn't realize, they'd only played about 12 times in history, and most of those came before 1930. But trying to think of how, Oklahoma and Texas figured into SEC rivals, and now looking at what Texas A&M is sitting at, I mean, I don't really consider LSU a rival for Texas A&M. I know they're trying to make that a big deal. Mississippi State certainly doesn't move the needle for SEC perspective between Texas A&M and Mississippi State. I know that they also tried to make Arkansas a big homestead in Dallas each year. My point is, without Texas, A&M doesn't have animosity towards another school that is reciprocated. There's just not another school in the SEC that cares enough about Texas A&M for a second or third game in their quote-unquote pod, as you mentioned, Bobby, to matter all that much. So to see Mississippi State there, that's a total yawn. To see LSU there, Jeff, you mentioned Arkansas needs Texas. A&M needs LSU in that same breath. And that's where I kind of look at what their trio looks like and say, okay, who cares almost? As long as Texas is there, that's really the only game that is going to move the needle in Texas and beyond in SEC terms.
All right, this is actually good stuff, because the other thing I would mention, guys, for y'all, as we think about this overall, is that A&M also wants that rivalry with LSU, like you're talking about, CJ, but LSU doesn't really reciprocate. And so they don't have that second. OU now, to your point, Jeff, doesn't have that second rival because Oklahoma State is out of it now with them. That was their other main rival as we look at this. All right, before we go further, because we do want to talk about the +1, and I want to bring that up as a matter of fact. I want to say thank you to our friends over at Advanced Pain Care.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and advanced pain care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced pain care. The pain stops here.
You know what those two quarterbacks have in common? They both beat Ohio State. All right, let's keep going here. As it relates to the last part of this new ruling of the SEC and the 9-game SEC schedule, +1. And that +1 means what else? A team has to play one of the Power 4 level conference teams outside of their conference play. So 10 of the 12 game schedule now will be against Power 4 opponents. I was thinking about this as I mentioned Oklahoma. This gives an easy in now for that Oklahoma State game to happen, right? And it keeps Georgia Tech safe. If they do this throughout the country, USC Notre Dame is safe if they really do. You know what I mean? So I feel like that is a twist to the rule that should be very, very good.
It's great for college football in this world of, conference realignment to maintain that level of consistency in regionality, right? You look at Clemson, you look at South Carolina, they play every year. Florida State, imagine taking that game away. So while the conferences are changing, while college football is changing, this +1 allows for that those rivalries and big time games to maintain a part of college football history, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, Jeff, what do you think, bud?
Yeah, I think Texas again comes out looking good on this because if you look at the conference schedule again, with all due respect to Baylor fans or Tech fans or TCU fans, as Texas fans, the three main rivals in the history of this program are OU, A&M, and Arkansas. Now that you've got those hypothetically again on your conference schedule for that +1, Texas going out there playing Ohio State. They've got Michigan scheduled, another one with Ohio State, Notre Dame scheduled. Bobby, if they want to, I would love to see Texas and Penn State play. It's been a while since we've seen Texas and Penn State play each other. I would love to see Texas and Clemson do a home and home after that playoff game. And as a kid who grew up watching college football in the 90s, one of my dream matchups, the fact that Texas and Florida State have never played each other in football, I want to see that game before I leave this earth. So if you're Texas, if you're CDC, you're pretty much sitting in the catbird seat because you're +1. You're just adding the cherry on top at that point to your schedule every year.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I do believe that Greg Sankey did a smart thing here. He didn't just go to 9 games. He went to 9 games +1. So now the Indianas of the world, Kurt Signetti, who famously said, why would I play anybody other than, Little Sisters of the Poor, now has to re-up his own schedule, and I think that in a way it's almost like calling some of the Big Ten's bluff. Oh, well, we have to play 9 conference games. You only play 8. Well, the SEC didn't just say, okay, we'll play 9 and 1. And they like doubled down almost. And I think that was an intriguing way to look at it because, look, I mean, the SEC is one of the 2 power conferences in this country. The Big Ten right now has 2 national championships in a row. No 2 ways about it. I still believe the SEC has more depth, and the Big 12 and the ACC just doesn't have that depth. So by making the schools in the Big 12 and the ACC, as well as the Big Ten, the guys that try to hide by playing, smaller schools, I think it'll push that button a little bit better and be smarter. All right, overall final take on this. I just think it's, my personal opinion, it's great for college football. I mean, bottom line, as a long time, not only just Texas fan, but college football fan, more good games is better for everybody. There's no reason Texas A&M should be playing Samford, not Stanford, in October or November. I mean, it just makes no sense. And Alabama's done it for years as kind of a UT Chattanooga, not UT Knoxville. They've done that, and I think this ultimately is where college football needs to go. And I think that it also allows maybe a segue into the top 4 conferences breaking away. It's just one more piece of the puzzle that allows that. All right. For Jerry, All right. For CJ and Jeff Howe, I'm Bobby Burton. This has been On Texas Football, presented by our friends over at Advanced Paid Care, Dr. Mark Malone and friends. We'll be back again tomorrow morning with the Saturday conversation. You guys have a good one. Hug 'em horns.